Yo, welcome back to the MMA Fight Realm. Thanks for tuning in. If you are new, it is your boy Chris, and I'm back with another picks and predictions video, this time for UFC Saudi Arabia. Robert Whittaker taking on Ikram Aliskerov in the main event. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks in the comments, and let me know your picks in the comments as well. Let's break it down, man. Leading off the card, we got Xiao Long taking on Chang Ho Lee. Now, this is a hard fight to predict here. I think Xiao Long, much more cage time, already 34 fights under his belt, and he's only 26 years old. And there's some questionable opponents on his record, but 34 fights compared to his opponent, only 10 fights. Gotta credit the cage time there. He had his chance to get into the UFC 3 years ago back against Christian Quinones, and it was a close fight. Xiao Long, he was walking Quinones down, but he struggled with the reach advantage that Quinones had, and he ended up outlanding Quinones in significant strikes, but the reach and footwork of Quinones was playing a big role in that fight. And 3 years back, talking about a 23-year-old Xiao Long at the time, so he's improved a lot more, and that was against UFC caliber competition, so not a bad loss to have. These guys, they have fought questionable opponents, so to see him go to decision against Quinones, not that bad. Since that loss to Christian Quinones, Xiao Long has been on a 4-fight winning streak, 2 on road to the UFC, and in both of those he's fought some tough grapplers who are just trying to take him down, but his takedown defense was showing up in that fight. It was amazing. His first fight, he defended 13 out of 17 takedowns, only gave up 1.5 minutes of control time, won a dominant decision win in that fight. And then in his second fight, which was the semifinal of the show, he took on another serious grappler, 13-1, and Xiao goes on to defend 16 takedowns in that fight and win it by decision. So 78% takedown defense, and it was earned for sure. And from what I've seen about Chang Ho Lee, it looks like Xiao is just taking on another grappler here. Lee, he's a great wrestler. He mentioned on road to UFC he would like to be like Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he's got, for the most part, a heavy one-dimensional wrestling game. He's got 5 finishes by ground and pound. In both of his fights on road to UFC, he was relentless at trying to get the fights to the ground. But when he's not able to get the wrestling going, he becomes a bit one-dimensional, in my opinion. I think, I was able to watch his only loss on Brave FC, and in that fight, he was not able to get his opponent down, but he didn't show much willingness to strike. So, it's great when it works, but I think 9-1 hasn't been anyone that stands out. This is going to be his toughest fight, and for Xiao, it's just another strong grappler again. So I'm picking Xiao Long to get this one done by decision. I think it's going to be a close fight, but I can see Xiao defending the takedowns and having the bigger moments of the fight. Xiao Long by decision is the pick for me. Next up, we got Magomed Gadzhiev taking on Brenson Ribeiro. Magomed should not be a -375 in this fight at all, in my opinion. I think and it's possible he gets an early finish in this fight, but it will be because Brenson is just a kill or be kill fighter who just got knocked out 4 months ago. So Magomed, he might just happen to land a clean one, but I'm really not high on him at all. Watching him on the regional scene, he is just dusting this low-level competition, smoking them with his striking, and he's got good wrestling. He's coming from Dagestan, so he's got the wrestling in his back pocket. But if you watch his Contender Series fight, it was against Jose Medina, and it didn't look good at all for Magomed Gadzhiev. He couldn't put him away, despite him having the height and reach advantage and overall skill set advantage in that fight. I thought Jose Medina didn't look UFC caliber, yet Jose Medina was walking Magomed down, absorbing all of his strikes and making it a dogfight. And Magomed, there were moments he looked uncomfortable. There were moments he was looking like he was starting to fatigue in that third round as well. And Magomed, he got his hand raised. He won that fight by decision, but it just did not a very underwhelming performance. A very underwhelming performance by Magomed. And I think there's a good chance he wins here, but we might see another underwhelming performance. We might see him having to rely on his wrestling a lot here to take on Brunson. Brunson is a finisher when the fight is on the feet, and he's dangerous, but he doesn't defend well at all. Doesn't defend takedowns well, doesn't move his head well enough either. He has a reach advantage in a good portion of his fights, but it doesn't play into his advantage because he's usually rushing in on his opponents, looking to land a fight-ending shot, but when it doesn't land, he's exposing himself for counters or just a straight shot. And having been knocked out a few months ago and now 3 times total, with the most recent being 4 months ago, I gotta side with Magomed to get this one done. The takedown defense, non-existent. I can see Magomed taking him down as well. I just don't know how this guy making a debut after a terrible fight on Contender Series is gonna cover that line. So I won't be betting on Magomed at all, but I think for the pick, I got to take Magomed to get this one done against Brunson Ribeiro. I think he gets it done by finish. Brunson is a kill or be killed fighter, so Magomed by finish or decision is the pick here. Next up, we got Muin Gafurov taking on Kyung Ho Kang. Now Gafurov 0-2 in the UFC, and he knows he's on the chopping block if he doesn't get a win here. And what better setup for the UFC to set this guy up? I mean, he's from Tajikistan, he's fighting in Saudi Arabia, and it's against an opponent who's 8 years older than him. Gafurov, he did have good moments in his debut against Castaneda. Good kick-heavy striker who can mix in some takedowns. Overall, he's got a decent style, but he took on Castaneda in his debut. And Castaneda, he's proven to be a tough opponent. And then Said Nurmagomedov in his very next fight, where he gets submitted in the first round. This for sure is a step down in competition for Gafurov, considered who he has been facing. But Kang is not a guy to take lightly. Kang doesn't stand out anywhere in particular, but he's good at the fundamentals. And he's got a sneaky submission game if he can get the fight to the ground. My problem with him is he's always in close fights. 4 wins by split decision, and it's because he's got a low output, man. He recently has made that change. We saw that against Batgarel Dana, where he landed 100 significant strikes. He got his hand raised. And against Castaneda, he landed 88 strikes, but got outstruck in that one and lost. So, he got outstruck in significant strikes and total strikes as well. John Castaneda, he's got to win over both of these two. And, once again, close fight. And it seems Kang, now at 36, we know he's probably going to always have that problem with age not doing him any favors. So Gafurov, he can take the first 2 rounds with more overall pressure and output. If Gafurov maintains cage control and is the fighter that's landing and throwing more in Saudi Arabia, then he will get his hand raised, in my opinion. And it's clear he needs a win to save his career. I like Gafurov in this spot to get this one done by finish or decision. I just think he can be the busier fighter or even land something early that's fight ending. So Gafurov by finish or decision is the pick in this fight. Next up, we got Rinat Fakhretdinov taking on Nicholas Dalby. Now, Dalby has been on a run lately. He hasn't lost in 3 years, and his last loss was to 37-year-old Tim Means, 37-year-old at the time. I had to watch that one back because I was surprised to see, 4-fight win streak for Dalby now. Tim Means was able to outclass Dalby in that fight. He just outclassed him in the stand-up. He even got some takedowns. Dalby was struggling in the clinch with the 37-year-old at the time, Tim Means. And I know Tim Means, veteran of the sport, very proven to be a tough opponent. Rinat is no slouch, man. And, his very next fight, he goes on against 39-year-old Claudio Silva. And with Silva, it's the same. He starts off great, but gasses out. Silva took Dalby down in the first and controlled him the entire round. Dalby couldn't find a way up. Overall, he got taken down 4 times and controlled for 7 minutes, but he won the second and third on damage to earn himself a decision. Being able to outlast his opponents is something I do not question when it comes to Nicolas Dalby. And when he took on Bonfim, he did the same. He weathered the early storm and tired out Bonfim. I think you need to be ready for the full 15 minutes when it comes to Nicolas Dalby. And Renat, he did show that he can gas late, but Dalby has been taken down 10 times in these 4 wins that he's picked up, and by mostly much older competition. So Renat, I think Renat is going to get Dalby down. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. And when he does, I think he will have a strength advantage. And he doesn't look to lay and pray. He's also throwing bombs out there. He's not one-dimensional. We've seen him put Kevin Lee's lights out, and he even dropped Brian Battle in that fight. I'm not questioning whether Renat can win 2 rounds. I just worry about the third. And this fight can go into the later rounds because Dalby has proven to be durable. He's never been finished. With the strength advantage, I favor Renat to get this one done. If he's got the right coaches, I'm sure they're drilling 5 rounds to prepare for the cardio that they're going to need to be able to last the full fight against Dalby, because he does bring it. And, he's proven he's always in the fight until the very end. But I'm picking Renat to get this one done either by finish or decision in this fight, man. I think he's going to shape up that cardio, and he's going to show a much improved version in this fight. Renat by finish or decision is the pick. Next up, we got Muhammad Naimov taking Felipe Lima on short notice. Naimov gets another replacement, and it says 3-0, but in his last one against Eric Silva, stepped into the side of the cage, and you can say Naimov forced the action, but a very rare occurrence for sure for Eric Silva in that fight. Not much to take away from that fight, but against Nathaniel Wood, he looked decent, I'll say. Good calf kicks, and he throws with bad intentions, but it's mostly overhooks and not straight shots. I think he's a good offensive wrestler, but defensively, he's been exposed. 57% takedown defense. He's been taken down by all of his opponents besides Eric Silva, which lasted, 44 seconds before Silva hurt himself. And I think there's still some questions on the ceiling of Muhammad Naimov, but he's got a natural bantamweight taking this on short notice, so I'm not sure if he will get, if we're going to get many answers to those questions in this fight. Felipe Lima, from the little tape I've seen, he's very well-rounded. He trains out of the same gym as Chimaev. He mixes up his attacks very well, and I think he's definitely a prospect that's fitting for the UFC. But this one's up a weight class and on short notice. I don't think we're going to see the best version of him, but I think he will make it a good fight. I think he's going to give Naimov problems in all areas, but Naimov will have the size advantage. That just might be enough to earn himself a decision win in this fight. Naimov also much more prepared. The jury is still out on Naimov, so I wouldn't be surprised if he loses this fight. But I'm picking him to get this one done here. I think Naimov gets this one done by decision in this fight. Just taking on a short notice opponent down a weight class. Up a weight class, and he should have the advantage in the strength here. So I'm picking Naimov by decision. Next up, we got Nasrat Haqparast taking on Jared Gordon. This should be another good fight. Both coming off first round finishes. Both looking to fight their way back into the top 15. I have been impressed with Nasrat a lot more than Gordon's performances as of late. I think he's improved in all areas of MMA, and he's one of the fighters whose early losses to guys like Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, I think they shaped him up to be a better fighter now, and we are starting to see that each time he comes out. He's got good takedown defense, fast hands, and he's a great boxer. I think he will have the advantage if the fight stays standing, and Gordon hasn't been able to be dominant on the ground much. He was able to control Paddy Pimblett and take him down 3 times, but the jury is still out on Pimblett and how good he is. Nasrat, I question a lot less in terms of potential and how he's going to deal with the wrestling of Jared Gordon. Gordon isn't terrible in the striking, but he's going to be much slower than Nasrat. And watching his fight back with Marco Madsen, I didn't like how much success Marco Madsen was having in the striking against Jared. Mark, the Olympic wrestler, was only one strike away from matching Jared Gordon in significant strikes before Jared landed that fight-ending shot in the first round. And Nasrat, just a much better striker than Mark. He should be able to outstrike Jared Gordon here and earn himself a win. I think Nasrat gets this one done. I'm picking him by decision in this fight. It should be a good one, but I think he gets it done by decision. Next up, we got Johnny Walker taking on Volkan Ozdemir. Johnny Walker, the wild card, versus a seasoned veteran Volkan Ozdemir. Now we know what we're going to be getting from Volkan at this point in his career, and Walker, it's just a big question mark on how he's going to approach this fight. Does he throw technique out of the window and just try to brawl, or does he make it a calculated fight like he did, like he tried to do with Magomed Ankalaev? Now personally, I would favor the brawler style for Johnny Walker in this one, because Volkan does not do well when he's being pressured. We saw that against Jiri, although he did eat some shots before Jiri was able to get the job done. And Volkan, he's fought the who's who of this weight class, so I really don't think Johnny Walker is going to show him something that he hasn't already seen. I think if Walker gets too aggressive, he can get knocked out because his chin is just not reliable. But if he doesn't put the pressure, he can lose this fight to a much cleaner striker. And Walker, he's very hittable. I still want to believe Volkan is one of those fighters who is a tough challenge. And with Walker lacking in the fight IQ, I just have a tough time seeing him getting it done here, other than catching Volkan on the feet by luck, or just being the brawler. Like I said, I'm picking Volkan. I'm picking Volkan to get this one done. The amount of wars he's been through, it worries me, but I think Walker is just unreliable at this point. And even though he's had his moments, this is gonna be a tough fight for him. I'm picking Volkan by finish or decision in this fight. I think he can also finish the very chinny Johnny Walker as well. So give me Volkan in this fight. Next up, we got Shara Magomedov taking on Jalton Luderbach. This is a tough matchup for Jalton. Almost 50 fights, definitely a veteran of the sport. But if you're counting on Jalton to grapple here, because we saw the holes in Shara's grappling in his last one, this is going to be a tough ask for Jalton Luderbach to be grappling for all 3 rounds. Jalton, he has not been relying on his grappling much, if at all. He's been in karate combat matches and boxing matches, some kickboxing matches. The last we saw him have much success in the grappling was during his time in the PFL, back when he was fighting at lightweight. and for me, that's another problem, man. This guy's 31 years old and he's moving up and down weight classes. You would think somebody who takes this a bit more seriously should, settle down on a weight class and start building muscle and whatnot. And even though, he's been relying on his stand-up more with these karate combat matches and kickboxing matches, I don't question who the better striker is here in this fight. And I think Shara has that advantage. Shara has a heavy kickboxing approach. He's fast and he throws with bad intentions. 10 finishes out of his 12 wins. Skill for skill in the stand-up against Bruno Silva, he was winning. And it was when Bruno mixed in the takedowns that it changed up the fight and our overall impression of Shara Magomedov. But I think he's only 30, 12 fights into his career. It's something he still has plenty of time to work on, and I think he's got a lot of potential. I'm picking him to get this one done here on the feet. He should have the advantage, and I'm expecting to see an improved version of him in the grappling. I think Shara gets this one done by finish in this fight. I think he's the much better striker as well. So give me Shara here by finish. Next up, we got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Daniel Rodriguez. This should be a close fight. D-Rod hasn't fought in some time, and that worries me. But he's always had good moments, even in his losses. He's a great boxer. He checks calf kicks well, and he defends takedowns well for the most part. But you won't see him shooting from any takedowns himself. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, but it's to guys like Ian Gary and Neil Magny. Against Magny, he had moments. He was pop-shotting Magny, trying to avoid the clinch, but Magny in the clinch is when he's at his best. And, you know, he was able to execute that against D-Rod. He got him down eventually and submitted him in the 3rd round. And then against Ian Garry, he just got head kicked and finished in the 1st round. He finished him off with some ground and pound. 2 fighters who I think can beat, and if not beat, finish Gastelum at this point in his career. I haven't been impressed with Gastelum in a very long time. I just think he's a wild card. He's lost 3 of his last 5. He got submitted by Brady in his last one, you know, but he's going to decision against Robert Whittaker and Cannonier. You know, I think he can stand for rounds with top level talent, and it's when you mix it up on him that he starts to look even worse. And for D-Rod, only 1 takedown back in 2020. I think the year off after the knockout to Ian Garry isn't bad, but then you got to add him being 37 years old. I got to question how he's going to look. If Gastelum is faster of the 2, then he should have the bigger moments. But I can see D-Rod using his height and reach very well and being able to box up Gastelum from the outside. I don't like picking 35-plus-year-olds, and then you got to add the layoff. And then it's tough to pick Gastelum as well. I don't know which version we're going to get out of Kelvin Gastelum. I'm going back and forth on this pick, and I'm probably going to go back and forth on this pick until Saturday. For now, I'm picking Kelvin Gastelum to get this one done by decision. I think he was going to have the bigger moments and be the faster of the 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if D-Rod is just pop-shotting him from the outside and avoiding the takedowns. My money is staying far away from this fight. So, you know, for now, give me Kelvin Gastelum by decision. No bet on this fight at all. Next up, we got the co-main event. Sergey Pavlovich taking on Alexander Volkov. And it was a tough loss for Pavlovich in his last one against Aspinall. Got caught in the middle of an exchange. Aspinall's speed played into his favor. And, you know, just when he landed, he put Pavlovich on skates. And it was the first time the second time the chin didn't hold up for Pavlovich, because normally he's been known for taking some shots. When it comes to his style, he's gonna have to take some shots. He's a fundamental bull out there. He is just walking you down, throwing fight-ending punches, but he's also moving his head out of the center line. He is kill or be killed, and as a fan, it's fun to watch because for the most part, he's been getting it done. And he took 6 months off since this knockout loss to Aspinall, and I think that's a perfect amount of time. He's got a matchup here that should stay standing. Volkov, former kickboxer, and he's got 47 MMA fights under his belt, so he's no stranger to this. He's a great striker, much more dangerous when he's able to get his kicks off at distance, and he's on a 3-fight finishing streak after that loss 2 years ago to Tom Aspinall as well, where Aspinall made quick work of him. Only took 1 takedown for Aspinall to put him in an arm lock. But we all know by now, Volkov, he has all the tools to stay relevant in the top 10, but in my humble opinion, not enough to break into the top 5, man. His best win out of his last 3 is Tai Tuivasa, and Tuivasa is a brawler who, just like Sergey, is kill or be killed, but he's much less technical. Volkov, 6'7", and that means he towers over most of his opponents, but he has not utilized his height advantage very well against the better half of the competition he's faced. When he fought Tai Tuivasa, he did well at the start by using his jab, but as the fight went on, Tuivasa was having moments where he would pressure Volkov and force him on the back foot. That's when Volkov is at his worst. You know, if Sergey is the dictator of this fight, then it's going to end very early. And I also don't expect Sergey to be taking much steps back, as you rarely ever see him do that. I think Sergey gets this one done. The forward pressure and hand speed is going to be too much for Volkov. Volkov not as fast as he used to be, and with that tendency to let his opponents back him up, I can see that being a huge problem for him in this matchup. Sergey by knockout is the pick. I think he bounces back from that loss, man. Next up, we got the main event. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of these picks, man. Robert Whittaker taking on Ikram Aliskerov in the main event. props to Robert Whittaker for taking this fight. I think he gains absolutely nothing if he wins this, other than shutting off the hype of a guy who's only beaten Phil Hawes and Warlley Alves. So, you know, Whittaker, former champion, coming off that win over Paulo Costa. There's no question who's the much more proven fighter here, and that's why it's tough to build the case for Aliskerov, in my opinion. But the guy, he's a beast, man. Aliskerov, he's got 11 finishes out of his 15 wins, fast hands, knockout power, and he can grapple. You know, he's training out of Dagestan. I think he's a very complete fighter from what he has shown us, and this will be his first 5-round fight in the UFC. Just happens to be against number 3 ranked Robert Whittaker. This will also be his first ranked opponent, so huge jump for him in this spot, and he's got a good chance to pull it off. But if you have to question how he is going to look against one of the best of this weight class, you know, Rob has only losses to Adesanya, former champion, and Duplessis, current champion, so at middleweight, and he's been through so many wars, so you gotta question his chin. But overall, man, you know, I mean, you know, he got knocked out by Dricus and Adesanya. Overall, that's the only thing I'm questioning from him. He's a great striker, amazing in and out footwork. He can mix in takedowns, and he always does a great job of giving his opponents different looks. I worry about his chin, but if he can deal with the early pressure of Ikram, I can see him running away with this fight by decision. You know, first 5-round fight for Ikram, and he wasn't initially preparing for that. He was supposed to be on the main event last weekend. And Ikram, you know, he will have the power advantage, but I don't think it will last the entire fight. If Ikram is looking to finish Rob, it's got to be early, and it can happen. But I think Rob, much more proven and, you know, much more 5-round experience. I favor Rob to get this one done, but I will be worried in the early rounds about this pick. Rob by decision. Rob by decision is the pick in this fight. I think Whittaker has enough tools to give enough different looks and give enough problems for Ikram early enough to drag this fight on and earn himself a decision win over Ikram Aliskerov, who was initially not preparing for a 5-round fight. And if you watch his regional scene tape, he's got some cardio issues already. So I favor Whittaker in this spot. I think he gets it done. I will not be surprised if he gets knocked out early though, but as the fight goes on, he should be the favorite. So give me Robert Whittaker by decision, and there you guys have it, man. Those are the picks for UFC Saudi Arabia. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. I'm out of here. Peace, man.